Hey everyone, we are live and I'm here with my friend Katy Brooks. Katy, say hello.
Hi.
Okay, so you kind of laughed when you said that I boosted this, that you are the Enneagram extraordinaire. Well, I think you are. I think that you definitely are. So several years ago, when I started doing the Enneagram, Katy was one of my friends that was like, oh, I studied all the time. Let's talk about it. What's your number? You were just so super excited about it. So I have invited Katy to kind of hop into our little group today and talk to us just what the Enneagram is and how we're kind of all processing this. So I introduced it in this group. I think it was about, and we talked about like how your personality is processing the pandemic, kind of in light of the Enneagram. So Katy, like in your words, how would you describe the Enneagram? Like what is it and how does it work?
Yeah, I would describe the Enneagram as a personality theory that gives you 9 different ways to see the world. And so we all kind of lean into one side of seeing the world through one of those different 9 ways. 9 different ways. And it's cool because you can also pick up traits from the other numbers, but really at the core of it, you really settle on one number and then maybe lean to the left or right a little bit, which is called your wing. So,
okay. So what's your number?
So I'm a 4. The title of a 4 is a individualist or romantic. And yeah, that's my number.
Okay, so I'm a 3, so that's an achiever. And one of the reasons that I specifically wanted to bring you on is because when I did this training before, there are not a whole lot of 4s out there that are leaders, at least in this industry, or at least if they are 4s, they haven't hopped in to let me know that they're a 4. So tell me, so as a 4, tell me about like the jobs that you've had in your life or the jobs that you're doing right now as a 4, which is like a romantic.
Yeah, so I've had kind of a few different careers. I'm 32. I just turned 32 a few weeks ago, and I've kind of had a few different careers, but it really speaks to my personality, which is I'm a very passionate person. So I have a very heavy interest in a few different things, and I've worked in all different areas that I love. So the first one is I have a heart for counseling. So I did study in higher education counseling. I haven't finished my master's in that, but yeah, I worked at a counseling center, more on the admin side. But after that, I've worked in education as a Spanish teacher. And then I am a yoga instructor. And also I am now an insurance agent. So that wasn't necessarily a passion of mine, but it's something that God opened the door for me. So if he tells me to go somewhere, I try to listen.
Well, that's a good thing for any number. So just so everyone watching knows, Katy and I actually teach yoga together. We both teach at Lifetime, and that's one of the jobs that we have. We both are multi-passionate people. So what I found interesting is based on our personalities, I'm the achiever, you're the individualist. It's kind of the way that we teach our yoga classes, right? Because I want them to work really hard, and I don't want them to waste the hour that they came, because I want them to get some namaste and get some peace. That I want them to set goals and work and push hard and make sure that they do not give up, that they push themselves all the way through this hot hour-long 100-degree room practice. And you teach the same thing, but tell me how you approach that.
I think I really care about how people feel when they're around me and when they're with me. And so I also care about respecting people's time, space, boundaries. And so I'm going to do my best to teach a class that makes someone feel seen, but also challenged and then feel good. So it's kind of been one of my favorite jobs I've ever had, teaching yoga, even though it's not a career that's going to provide for a huge family or anything, but it's a job where I get to be so creative. I get to be myself. I get to, and see people. I get to see people. And so, for me, people feeling good physically, emotionally, mentally is like a huge part, I think, of being a 4. That shows up in everything that I do, even in insurance somehow. I don't know, but I really care about giving people their own unique experience. And so yoga has been a great outlet for me to do that.
That's awesome. Okay. So one of the main reasons that with my team and in my teaching, it's because I think there's this huge value in us being self-aware. And so when you and I have talked about the Enneagram before, you've given a lot of examples of why you think it's so important to be self-aware. So can you kind of shed a little bit of light on the self-awareness aspect of knowing your number and knowing your team's number?
For sure. I think being self-aware is one of the highest levels of maturity you can have. I think if you can bring self-awareness into your life, it's going to seep out into your relationships, into your work, into the way that you parent, into the way that you work on yourself. And so I definitely love that the Enneagram's biggest goal is to bring about self-awareness. And ultimately, that self-awareness impacts the way that you see other people, not just the way you treat other people, but the way that you can see someone else who's totally different than you. I have the ability now, after kind of learning about the Enneagram, to really respect someone else's perspective, and they're all the way back to their childhood. And something as cool as the Enneagram has given me that tool, all starting with my own self-awareness coming from learning my number. So does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. So what I'm going to do, because there may be some people watching that don't really know what these numbers are. So a few weeks ago when we did this, we actually shared some, people could go on and either share with their team or share on their social medias what are the different personalities and how they're processing this pandemic. So if you haven't grabbed that yet, go to BethCannonspeaks.com, Enneagram PP, and that is your the post-pandemic personality. So I'm going to show you guys these right now so you can maybe get an idea of what your personality might be. So if you are a 1, that means you're a perfectionist. So you slay when you're banging out processes and finding new systems to keep people healthy and safe. But you really need to pray when you're feeling judgmental, resentful, and with the wrong way that others are processing uncertainty.
So good, Beth.
Yeah. And then if you're a 2, you slay when you're helping others in your community, whether you're bringing toilet paper or making masks to keep people safe. But you need to pray when social distancing is creating conflict and anxiety because you are missing the connection that you need. And then this is a 3. So again, this is me. I will slay when I'm obsessing about how my pivot is going to make the world a better place, but I really need to pray when workaholism consumes me in an effort to avoid potential failures. That's kind of convicting, huh? Since I'm supposed to be on vacation and here I am working. So here's Katy, the creative 4. You slay when you're empathizing with others to help them process their pain, which is exactly what you're doing now. But you need to pray when your feelings of overwhelm begin to consume you. Would you say that you felt that?
Yeah.
You guys, you guys can't see Katy right now, but if you could hear, what did you do? Katy just did this when I said feelings of overwhelm, right? It's crazy.
I feel overwhelmed.
Okay, so let's talk about our 5. Yes. So 5s, you guys are the investigators. So you slay when you are learning and sharing knowledge and information with others. But you really need to pray when your pursuit of knowledge creates like this unhealthy cycle of a need to know what's really happening. And newsflash, right? 0 people in the world know what is actually really happening right now, right? 0 people know. So 5s are struggling.
True. So true.
Okay, 6s. So the 6s are the loyalists. So they slay when their already preparedness can help their community and think of how we can kind of best navigate this uncertainty. So they're great friends to have for 5s, but they need to pray when they have this underlying fear that kind of cripples them and makes them feel anxious in like every single situation because they can't control it and they want their people just to be okay. So that's a 6. Okay, and then 7. My sweet son is a 7. And so they are the enthusiasts. So their contagious joy is going to spill over and help others see the possibilities for the future, but they really need to pray when they feel plant and isolated and even making light of others' anxiety because they're just so optimistic. So maybe if you're a 6 and you have friends who are 7s, that might be hard because they are probably on your very last nerve right now with their optimism. Okay, you guys are the challengers, and your leadership can be used to activate others to seek justice and speak for those who aren't being heard. And you need to pray when you're impatient with others' lack of action and it causes you to be angry and resentful. So another thing too, I think that my friends who are 8s are having trouble with right now is the cultural and political environment. You know, everything that's gone on with this, with the George Floyd murder, and all of that is just causing a lot of conflict. And it's our 8s, the social justice warriors, who are really, really having a hard time processing that. And then 9, you guys are the peacemakers. So you slay when you get to bring unity to your community by helping your people understand each other. But you need to pray because you kind of have this ability to really numb out and avoid dealing with the challenges of life. So would you agree that kind of nails it, Katy?
You did great. I think you are the Enneagram extraordinaire.
Yeah, you're the extraordinaire. But when you know those numbers, and I know you have people of all numbers in your life. I have almost every number on my team. Ironically, I don't have any 4s on my team. So you are the 4 in my life that kind of helps me, you know, kind of different perspective.
We are the most rare.
When people are kind of. We are the most rare. Someone is asking if there are any books that we could refer them to study about the Enneagram. I know I have my favorite. Do you have a favorite?
Sure. How much time do you have? So the most kind of popular mainstream book right now is The Road Back to You by Ian Cron and Suzanne Stabile. I think it's okay. I'd give it like a 6 or a 7. I really appreciate the depth of a book called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. The first chapter is going to be a little bit new agey, and I'm just not on board with that whole thought process. So I skip right over that, and I just get to the good stuff, which is the numbers. And that book is called The Wisdom of the Enneagram. And there's another book called, it's written by Beatrice Chestnut. That's another one. It's real thick. Sorry, I can't remember right this second. I have it all.
Okay, let me ask you a question. So for those who, you know, kind of tend to think that, you know, personality tests are a little woo-woo, you know, you mentioned that one book is a little bit new agey. I have had people come to me and say like, hey, I think that's a little woo-woo. I don't know if that aligns with my faith or my beliefs. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I've heard that several times. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I don't take the Enneagram so seriously that my whole life is centered around it. God help me if I get there. Seriously, what I like about the Enneagram is that it has consistently pointed me back to Jesus, to get my help, get my crap together through him, because even though the Enneagram can show me so much and it's a wonderful mirror, it is not actually going to fix me. So as long as my foundations remain solid in my relationship with God, the Enneagram can be a wonderful tool to help me see myself. But the longer that I stare at myself and, speaking hypothetically, then the longer I get wrapped up in it. So I just have to let it kind of be like a mirror that reflects me back for a second, and then I just turn right back to God, especially with in the terms of relationships. We can get hung up on what the other person's doing wrong. And I think the second you become more self-aware, you learn, oh, wow, look at me. And I need a lot of help here. So
there's so much wisdom that gets unlocked when we're self-aware. And I think too, it's not just being aware of ourselves, but it's being aware of other people and what other people need. So for those of you guys who are watching, I want you guys to drop your numbers to see just kind of who's in here. And if you've ever done this with your team, also kind of let us know if you've done it with your team. The reason that I do is because I want to understand how my people see the world, how they process conflict. So basically the Enneagram goes back to what are your core fears and what are your core motivations. So like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, Katy, like, what are some core fears that when you talk to people about their number, you kind of see those fears coming up that kind of helps the way that they see the world?
I think the fears and the motivations are so helpful to know. And I think it's best to start with yourself, finding out what are my core fears and my core motivations based on the Enneagram. And then if that fits with you really well, then it's probably a good indicator that that's your number. And then to go a step deeper with it, you find out what is the childhood wound of that number, which is ultimately kind of where the theory is that's where that number starts to evolve, starting from a childhood wound. So
do we all have a childhood wound?
Every number has a childhood wound. I came from a really wonderful family. So at first I thought, well, that's ridiculous. No one wounded me. I grew up in a great home. But, the more that you learn, people around you make mistakes. And so it's truly which mistake kind of hit you a little bit harder. So I like to make it a little more simple. Think of it that way. And so the more that you learn your number, you can understand what wounds you. And, for a 4, I'll just be vulnerable here. 4s really care about being understood. They tend to feel a little misunderstood. We're unique. We're a little quirky sometimes. And even though I'm an extrovert and I'm very social and everything like that, ultimately, I want to be understood in a more intimate way. And so there's something way back in the day that made me feel not understood. And so, I spent a lot of my life trying to feel understood by people. And the self-awareness of the Enneagram has helped me stop trying so hard and just to live my life. And if someone doesn't understand me, I'm going to be just fine. I'm going to get over it. I'm going to be okay. It's going to hit me harder than you, but I do care about achieving things. I totally do, because I have a 3-wing. But ultimately, I don't wake up and go to sleep stressed about that. You know what I mean?
Like me?
And, yeah, I'm saying every angle of the Enneagram is so unique based on the number. So it's also good to look at the childhood wounds, and that can reveal why there are motivations and why there are fears.
So as far as motivation, like as a leader, can you think of a leader, let's say I've got every single number on my team. So let's say I have a 1, and a 1 is the perfectionist. What do you think is going to motivate a 1 for me to turn their talent into performance so I can get them to do what I need them to do at work?
Okay. I think I understand your question, but I'm going to have you rephrase it because I want to answer it well.
Okay. I have a 1 who works for me. Okay.
Right.
And I want to make sure that this 1 is going to get on board with the work that we need to do. So coming back out of the pandemic, that means that we've got some rules we're going to need to follow. We've got some processes we're going to need to follow, but we're also going to have to be really flexible because we're working with kids, and we have to understand that things are not always going to go according to plan. So if you've got a 1, how are some ways that you can help that 1 be successful in that environment?
Yeah, 1s do such a good job with basically a guideline or a textbook, because they will go off the textbook, they will go off the rules, they will follow the instructions. They are wonderful rule followers. They are the best rule followers. So to give those 1s maybe the role of, hey, can I give you this new book of ethics and code of conduct that we have to follow and these rules? Can I give you the job of sharing that with this small team? Or can you maybe retype my mistakes, or just giving them that unique responsibility? I think 1s tend to want to project all those rules over everyone, throw it up over the whole group and community, because they care so much about everything being done well and right. So there's my child. Okay, so I think for the most part, giving a 1 a job that will help them with their strengths by keeping the rules, if that makes sense.
Okay, because I've talked about this before. I am married to a 1 who is Mr. Rule Follower, Mr. Do every single thing the right way. And so I love your advice on that. Okay. I want to ask you also just one other one, but about the twos, because the most common number that we have working in education are twos. So those are the helpers. So coming out of this situation, again, we've got all the rules we're supposed to follow. In lots of environments, we have kids who are wearing masks. We have teachers who are wearing masks. Teachers who, my twos are generally the most loving and nurturing people. And now they're having to teach children to social distance, to work more independently. There's a little bit more of a focus on, let's not hug our friends, let's not touch our friends, because we want to make sure that, we're following some of those guidelines to keep safe right now. Being twos process all of this.
Yeah. I have a lot of two-like qualities. And so for me, I think it would be really hard to be a two in this situation, because you have to encourage social distancing and all that. So I would just say the fact that twos love so well, they are incredible lovers and nurturers and care. They're such great caretakers. So giving them that job of taking care of those kids emotionally, because the kids are going to be confused. Why can't I hold my friend's hand anymore in this game? Giving them that job of maybe just caring for the kids' hearts in this situation, and encouraging them to have good emotional boundaries, the two, because twos tend to pour out their hearts so much that they get really drained and have an empty cup. Yes. So just letting them know it's okay to love on these kids, but also to be firm with your boundaries, because there are rules, very strict rules right now in the world. So.
Okay, so that's what she is a teacher. So, I think Brock must be there needing a little bit of, are you wondering what childhood wound you're giving your own child now?
I wonder all the time.
So Katy has a 4-year-old, so he's a busy little guy. Okay, so one other thing that I want to address, we've got where a lot of our leaders are twos. Yeah. And one of my really good friends, her name is Corey, and she has been doing pandemic care all of this time, and she's a 2. And so what I'm seeing, or what she's telling me, is that she is taking on a lot of the burden of her staff, because people are dealing with all kinds of stresses that we've never dealt with before. So how can a 2 leader, maybe what's some advice that you would give to a 2 leader who needs to be a little better about setting boundaries?
Yeah. Advice I would say would be to encourage that the word no is healthy, that the word no, it can be very loving. The word no can be one of the best things they could do for their life, and that's no is hard for 2s, 3s, and 4s, because we are in the heart triad. So if you go look up the 3 triads of the Enneagram, the 2s, 3s, and 4s are in the heart triad. So we function a lot from our heart, meaning saying no to people is very, very challenging because it hurts. It hurts to receive a no, and it hurts to give a no. And for a 2 leader, for them to own that they are a leader, and then to own that they, in a leadership role, you have power and people trust you with that power, and to use that for good, and using no is a good thing. Sometimes it's really hard. So it just is going to give them stronger mental muscles, I think, sometimes to say no. Because when 2 say yes,
they are learning there.
Sometimes when 2 say yes, they say yes with expectation. Yes, you can. Yes, I'll do this. Yes, I will help you here, but I'm going to require a thank you, a this, a that, and you know what I mean?
Yes, that is helpful. Okay, one last question. So, as a 4, for those who are managing 4s, kind of coming out of this, what are some things that demotivate you in your personality? Because I think it's important to look at what motivates, but it's also important to look at what demotivates as well. So tell me some things that, if you were on my team and you were a 4, kind of tell me some things that maybe are difficult right now?
I don't like being told what to do. Is that terrible?
No, I need to know, because if we have fours on our team and again, Katy and I have a work relationship, we have a friend relationship, we work together. So I'm not Katy's supervisor, but it's good to know, because I know that you are I want to preface this by saying a great worker, and you are a great coworker to have. But it's interesting that you straight up say, I don't like to be told what to do. So tell me about that.
Yeah, I really respect authority. And so it's hard for me to say that out loud, that I don't like being told what to do. And I think what I mean is I love guidance. I love someone saying, hey, I need you here and I need you to perform it really well. But I don't like being told the steps along the way. So that's where the creative side of a 4 comes out. I like the freedom, the space, the room to be myself as I perform the work that you're asking me to do. I'm completely comfortable with you telling me to perform that work, but I don't like you watching me, following me, or telling me how to do it along the way. And so I think every single 4 is that way. I really do. We just have, we like to be ourselves, and we like to work as ourselves too. And so, yeah, I think that's what I would say is, if you have a 4 in your crowd, respect their uniqueness, their creativity, and trust that they are working really hard, even if it doesn't look like, the process doesn't look like the way you would do it. Especially like a 1, for example, if there was a 1 manager, they would say, well, you're not doing it by the book, or you're not doing it through the steps. Like, why aren't you doing the steps? And I would just say, like, trust that the steps will happen in their own special way, and that it will get done. The more you let the 4 be themselves, the most amazing product will come out of it, I promise.
Yes, I agree.
Fair.
I agree.
I said it.
Okay. So again, this obviously is a subject that I am super passionate about, because I just think that when we as leaders have tools and we understand our people, it makes all the difference in the world. So I am going to pop this up again. So you guys, if you wanted to go grab those posts for your teachers, there is that. If you are watching this over in the Facebook page, make sure that you're in the group. It's just Facebook groups, COVID-19 Community for Faith-Based and NPOs. That's nonprofit organizations. So those are all the different places that we can find and connect. And then leading into next week, kind of as a summer project, we're going to have a course on the Enneagram. It's just going to be like a short little mini course for educators. So specifically early childhood leaders and educators, because I am so passionate about us understanding who our people are. Because one of the things I think that anyone in any industry would say is that we are different people than we were before the Q. Don't you think?
Yes. I can see your 3-ness, by the way, in this interview. Do you want me to share with you how? The questions you are at, you
share.
You didn't give me permission. Do you give me permission?
Yes, okay. Katy, all the permission.
All right.
Give it, sister.
So I can see that as a leader, you really care about meeting the needs of the different numbers in the group, whatever group you're working with. And that is such a great 3 quality, as they are very fluid, flexible, chameleon type of people. They are willing to transform for their people and for their group and for their job. And I can see that in the way that you care about meeting the different needs of your employees or whatever group you're working with. So I commend you for your 3-ness in that, but I encourage you to stay true to who you are in your leadership role and your God-given abilities. So own that Beth Cannon role, girl.
So yes, because I can tend to get a little bit of this work, this workaholic tendency for sure. And I also have to be careful that I don't label people, because again, it's just a tool, right? It's just a tool. It's a tool for self-awareness, for us to understand ourselves, understand other people, but not to label people. And with my husband, who's the one, Mr. Perfectionist, when he gets on my last nerve with the rules and making sure that everything is, just want things to be done, I have to just kind of step back and say, that's who he is. That is the way that God created him. And I am super thankful for the way that God created him, because he thinks in ways that I don't think, and vice versa. And I think that's kind of how it has to work with our team. So thank you so much for joining us, Katy. I appreciate it so much. And we are back in the gym, right? We're back teaching yoga. And hopefully as things continue to open up and this crazy pandemic begins to die down, we can get back to life and enjoy the life that we love so much. So thanks again for joining us today. For everyone, any questions or comments, drop them in the comments below, and I'll stick around for a while and answer them. You guys have a great day.